Follow Frank Klose, covers the Phillies, at Frank Klose with a K, K-L-O-S-E. We asked you on Twitter, what was your favorite part about yesterday? Phillies win, Sixers win, Eagles got a running back. Frank Klose will like this, 72% say the Phillies win was their favorite part of yesterday. Frank, is Phillies baseball officially back in the city of Philadelphia?
Oh, I sure believe it is. And you saw it yesterday, the excitement, the genuine happiness of the fans down at the ballpark, and the fact they were out there at 8:30 a.m. trying to tailgate before any lot would let them in. Yesterday was a day that really screamed baseball's back, and seeing Andrew McCutchen hit that home run to really kind of open up the Phillies offense yesterday, I mean, that just helped set that perfect tone.
Yeah, that was a great start to it to get McCutchen to hit the home run and kind of let the air out really quick. I want to get your thoughts on what you thought. Now, we saw the lineup. We knew that was kind of going to be what it was. But now that you saw it in action, kind of give us your take on why that is maybe the most effective lineup that Gabe Kapler could have gone with.
Well, you know, I kind of went back and forth on this, and I thought he was going to use Cesar Hernandez as the leadoff hitter for a while because he said it at one point. But, you know, Cesar Hernandez really wasn't using his speed on his base pass, and I really think that's what kind of gave Andrew McCutchen the edge there. You know, certainly Cesar Hernandez has had some tremendous stretches with on-base percentage, but every year it seems like he steals a few bases, and then he ends up getting caught, and then it's almost like he's afraid to steal after that. So I think they set up the way they did to maximize some speed at the top of the lineup. You know, we saw yesterday McCutchen and Segura. You know, Segura hits that little tower to the left side, ends up being an infield hit, and what you know, his tremendous speed, you know, gets the Braves to sort of rush a little bit, and the next thing you know, then you have runners at second and third, which allows first base to open up for them to walk Bryce Harper, and then you have a grand slam from Rhys Hoskins. I mean, that played out exactly the way you want it to be played out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the presence of Harper, I mean, he didn't have a great day. If you look at the box score and you didn't watch the game, you would be like, he didn't do much yesterday. But what did the presence of Harper tell you about the impact he will have around this lineup this year?
Yeah, I actually just wrote about this on 97.3ESPN.com about how even going 0 for 3 with a walk, you know, you look at that box score, you don't think much of it, but that lineup is so much different yesterday if they have somebody other than Bryce Harper in right field. Chances are that lineup will either feature Odubel Herrera batting third, and if you think about that big inning where the Phillies sort of tore the game open with that Rhys Hoskins grand slam, if either Odubel Herrera is batting third there, before Hoskins, you know, in that case, you see Herrera maybe doesn't get the walk, and, you know, you never know what could happen beyond that. And if you move Hoskins up one and Real Muto up one, it's not going to have the same effect because then you can pitch around Hoskins, and then you're thinking, okay, well, then I only need to get Real Muto out. But the way Harper was positioned third there, especially in that seventh inning, you know, Jackson was pitching for the Atlanta Braves yesterday, he was basically forced to pitch to Hoskins because Harper's on base. You know, you don't want him to beat you, and then you basically say, well, we're going to have to see if Rhys Hoskins will beat us instead, and then JT Realmuto behind him. So basically, the opposing pitchers are essentially going to be forced to pick their battles every single time as you get to that stretch of the lineup, and eventually you're going to see whether it's a team that says, okay, well, maybe I'll try pitching to Harper because, maybe I have a lefty on the mound, and but he's shown he can still hit lefties a little bit, and maybe you'll see that other times they say, okay, we'll put Harper on, and then Hoskins will pay. So they're going to have to pick their battles every single time, and there will be times that Hoskins definitely wins those battles after they pick Hoskins, and there'll be times that Harper picks them when he's picked too. So it just really changes the approach of the opposing pitchers. And even if he walks a lot, his batting average is low. Let's say, I know some people said when the Phillies signed him, well, look at his batting average last year. Well, his batting average doesn't matter if he gets on base like he does, whether it's through walks or whatever else. And he's going to score a lot of runs with those guys behind him.
Yeah, and I know, Kapler was asked after the game, basically what you said, having him in the 3-hole, what that meant, and you just kind of summed it up there. But my question is more about Hoskins, and this is really, I think, an opportunity to find out who this kid really is because, he jumped onto the scene with 18 homers in 50-some games, and then last year he had decent power, or he had good power. I don't want to say decent, but his batting average was a little low. But this year, he could really break out into an upper-level all-star type of numbers with this guy, with Harper hitting in front of him. Rhys Hoskins is really the guy that we're going to find out a lot about with Harper here.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I tweeted out something of the effect yesterday. This is going to be ridiculous because Hoskins is going to see pitches to hit. And, last year, who's really behind him to protect him in the lineup? I mean, if you're an opposing pitcher, does Nick Williams scare you that much? I mean, no offense to Nick Williams, so I think he'll be a nice bench player for the Phillies this year, but he doesn't really inspire fear. And, JT Realmuto will be behind him. There'll be runners on base ahead of him. That really sets up for Hoskins to see so many more pitches this year, and he has the talent to either make them pay, and he has the talent to walk if they're not throwing him anything. So I can really see this being a tremendous season for Rhys Hoskins. I mean, if there's one person that the Harper signing affects the most in a positive way, it's definitely Rhys Hoskins.
Yeah, no question. We saw the intentional walk to load the bases. I mean, that's a risky move to go to the number 4-hole hitter, and the 4-hole hitter makes him pay, which means you can't keep walking the 3-hole hitter if the 4-hole hitter is going to make you pay. But I want to go to deep in the lineup, Frank, where last year Hernandez hit 1, mostly Herrera hit 3, and a lot of times you saw Franco, he started the year like 4, 5 until he kind of moved down. Those guys are now hitting 6, 7, and 8. And talk a little bit about how really the depth of this lineup proved to be just too much for the Braves pitching staff yesterday.
Well, I think that Maikel Franco, if he really does bat 8th on a regular basis, I can see Maikel Franco getting a lot of walks, right? I think what's going to happen is they're going to recognize the threat that he could pose because he always has his stretches. We saw yesterday even he's got that raw power. Franco could make them pay as well. And if he's your 8-hole hitter, I can see them walking him to get to the pitcher frequently. Now, a lot of the rotation, if you get beyond Nola, the ones that are going to pitch about 5-6 innings on most days, like I would not expect that Vince Velasquez pitches more than 5 or 6 innings each time, right? Because that's kind of the pitcher he is, and Eflin could be in that same category. So really, after those first couple of bats that the pitcher has, Franco is going to essentially have another bat behind him. Because you're going to have a pinch hitter off the bench in either the form of Nick Williams or Scott Kingery. It looks like that's how they're going to go left right when it comes time for a pinch hitter. So I see that setting him up for a lot of success. Now, will he climb back? I guess the one question is, will he climb back up in the lineup if he has that success? One, there's no real room for him to go. And the way that they have Fernandez there and Herrera there, I think Herrera has to be fixed because of his left-handed bat. Hernandez, I know he's kind of a mismatch at the 7th hole, you might think, because he was a leadoff hitter. But, think back to when Shane Victorino had a lot of his success as a switch hitter, batting 7th with some speed. I think that we saw some of the most productive Shane Victorino in that role. And Hernandez is going to kind of bat and function in the lineup in that regard that Shane Victorino did back then. So, there's really not a dead zone in this lineup, and also don't dismiss Andrew Knapp. I think the days that he plays, you always wonder, like, well, if your 5-hole hitter's the catcher on the days he doesn't play, is that going to greatly affect the lineup? Knapp looked really good in spring training. Certainly not enough to certainly take playing time away from Realmuto other than the normal day off. But when the day off comes each week, I think that he can bat there and he'll function very, very well.
Frank Klose covers the Phillies at Frank Klose on Twitter, 97.3 ESPN.com. He's got a piece up on Bryce Harper's impact. I want to go quickly to, I don't know if there's any clues because of the way the score was yesterday, but Nola for 6, Neris, Robertson, Neshek. Neris came in, gave up a couple of hits, gave up a couple of runs. Robertson, he pitched an inning, gave up a couple of hits, gave up a run. Neshek came in. So I don't know that there was any clues about the bullpen yesterday, but Nola, he looked pretty sharp. He had the 8 strikeouts, gave up just 2 hits. So obviously Nola looked like he that last year really wasn't a flash. It wasn't one of those just out of the world, hey, this guy just had one of these years. He looked like the real deal yesterday.
Yeah, and I do want to point out, too, because some people pointed to his walks and said, well, that's a lot of walks. I think it was 5 walks. The Phillies purposely kind of held him back a little bit this spring, and they even did for David Robertson, too, who looked a little rusty. So I think Nola certainly was showing that he is going to be his old self. I think they're going to be a little conservative in the beginning, especially as he might walk a few, and maybe look to about 6 innings. But we didn't see what we saw the previous year. If you remember last year on opening day, Kapler kind of pulled Nola. I think it was after like 60 or 70 some pitches. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but he was allowed to pitch his full course of pitches, and even though I think he's I won't say rusty. I think he's a little bit behind because he didn't pitch as much this spring. He seems primed and ready to go for a big season, and it is telling too that even when he did walk those guys, he did not let them beat him. So definitely a lot of good stuff from Aaron yesterday.
Yep, and obviously a big one with the Braves. They're off today. They play again tomorrow. I think tomorrow is interesting because you get Arrieta, and not that it's a make or break start or whatever, but I saw Arrieta was the guy that I got to see live when I was in Clearwater. Fastball 93. He's not where he was with the Cubs when he won the Cy Young, but he certainly seems like he's healthier this year. I know he talked a lot about the fact that his knee was his left knee, not the push-off knee, but I'm very interested to see Arrieta tomorrow because I think he might be the biggest key to the whole season.
Yeah, that's fair to say. I mean, especially when the Phillies are going with the other starters that they had last year. They did not add anybody. Even though they were looking at the likes of Patrick Corbin and Jay Happ, and so I think you're onto something there. He's got to really show that veteran presence, and I think he's extra important. And this is something that people don't think about a lot, but Nola was so good last year that you're going to get some sort of regression from him. I mean, it sounds bad to say regression, but I mean it really might be still a heck of a season. But can you really expect Aaron Nola to do that again? So I think they need a little boost from Jake Arrieta to sort of be what he wasn't at times last year, so that when Nola sort of comes down to earth just a little bit, although I still expect him to be excellent, that they have some backup there. So I mean, really, if Arrieta isn't giving them anything, and you look at who's behind him, we still kind of think of Velasquez, Eflin, and Pivetta as still having some question marks. You can't have a rotation without at least 2 solid starters. So right now, and I get why they didn't add anybody else. We've talked about that plenty of times before. I understand it.
Do you think that's something they'd be open to? Like, all right, because Keuchel's still out there. I don't know if that's a guy, but would they be more likely to do, hey, we're going to sign Dallas Keuchel or make a trade at some point? Is that something you think that they will evaluate as this season progresses?
Oh, absolutely. I think the reason why they didn't add any more yet has to do with the competitive balance tax and trying to make sure they're below that for seasons to come. But, $18 million isn't a lot of money if you're adding players at the start of the season. But if you're addressing needs on July 31st, when you're only at that point, you have to pay a third left of somebody's salary. That means you can add 3 $18 million players instead of 1 $18 million player. So I really see the Phillies actually being very, very busy this July to address whatever they need. They still have so they'll have that money. They'll still have some prospects that they can trade and not feel like they're collapsing the farm. So I really do see them ready to respond if something doesn't go right.
And by the way, Arrieta is pitching the Sunday night game. Pivetta is pitching the game tomorrow. So it'll be Nola, Pivetta, Arrieta in the game on Sunday night. So they're going to have him pitch in that third spot to start the season, followed by Eflin. They have not announced a starter for the Wednesday game against Max Scherzer. So I would assume that would be Velasquez, right?
Well, actually, it sounds like the Phillies are going to skip over Velasquez in the beginning. They've got 3 off days, being today, Monday they're off, and they're off again on Thursday. So with all those off days, they are going to skip Velasquez. And I think the only reason why it's TBD because if you get one rain out, that kind of goes out the window. So I think that they're planning to skip Vince Velasquez. Velasquez will be available out of the bullpen just for this short stretch. And then, but that could be the way they laid things out this way as well in terms of Arrieta and Pivetta. But don't sleep on Pivetta. I mean, he's a pretty.
I like him.
Pretty talented young starter. A lot of people have a lot of high hopes for him. So he could really surprise people this year. And I do want to add one more thing, too, speaking rotation. It seems like last year there were like 4 times where he matched up with Mike Fultonevich of the Atlanta Braves, who's a tremendous young starter. Fultonevich is on the disabled list to start the season, and tomorrow would look a lot different if it was another Pivetta-Fultonevich matchup again. But the Braves are going to be hurting without that starting rotation depth, especially in the early part of the season. So the Phillies need to jump on this and take advantage while they can.
Yeah, we kind of debated yesterday whose starting rotation do you like better, and people say that the Phillies' rotation might be their weak spot, but in reality, they might have better starting pitching with Nola at the top than the Braves do.
Yeah, I personally am of the opinion that the Braves had a very shameful offseason. They added Josh Donaldson, who hasn't been healthy in like 7 years, and that's the lone acquisition for the Braves this year. They did not add a starting pitcher, even as they saw their depth sort of take a big hit. So the Braves really didn't step up, and there's really no real reason for them not to have spent a little bit more money other than they're being cheap. They've got that nice new ballpark. They have a low payroll because they've got a lot of young talent that hasn't made money yet. The Braves really should have stepped up and done something about the rotation. And who knows, somebody somewhere sometime, I think, is going to sign Dallas Keuchel. Maybe it'll be them still. I don't know. But for the Braves, the Braves need Dallas Keuchel perhaps more than anybody.
All right, Frank, of course, the Phillies this weekend. Tomorrow, the 4 o'clock game. Sunday night baseball against the Braves. We'll have that game for you live on 97.3 ESPN. Sunday night baseball here on 97.3. Frank, enjoy the baseball this weekend, pal.
Thank you. Same to you. Have a good one.